Table or truth?
All right, let's move on. Because I'm going to ask you
Please
something.
ask me so. I've been asking you questions. Let's
right.
go with you. Let's go with your quiz.
During the Veterans Day speech on Saturday,
Yep.
Trump said, quote, "We pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections. They'll do anything, whether legally or illegally, to destroy America and to destroy the American dream."
Okay.
Commentary, sir.
Well, if this was a game of Guess Who, I would say he's probably talking about the current Democratic Party. And the
No. What do you think about that statement about calling
I think it's very
opposition vermin?
I think there's definitely some vengeance in his voice, and I think at this point he's probably not even apologetic about how, just intimidating that sounds. I think at this point he's pissed off enough from the accusations he's had to endure in the last 3 months. I believe I saw an interview recently where he had mentioned that he was like, they opened the door for this kind of I guess like dirty play for trying to indict political opponents and stuff, and he kind of insinuated that if that's the way they want to play, well, then so be it. But he didn't necessarily guarantee that's what he's going to do. He just.
Oh, yes, he did.
He promised he's going to like jail everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, let's put it this way: if they're doing something that is technically illegal,
no, that's not what he's.
That precedent, like they set up. His argument is they set the precedent, right? And I think the noble thing, even though it's funny how people will sue for mercy,
do you believe
when they're
that?
on the other end. I don't know what to believe.
Before you go. Do you believe that the DOJ and the FBI have been sent out by the Biden administration to go after Trump?
I don't know if they were sent out directly by the Biden administration, but there seems to be some sort of a witch hunt on Trump. Like right. more than
a witch hunt seems that it's something that does not exist. Let's run it down.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk about Mar-a-Lago. Do you believe that Trump had confidential, secret, and other documents that belong to the United States down in Mar-a-Lago?
Spun in a way that could destroy humanity as we know it, the way it was sounded by MSNBC.
No. That's not what I said.
No. Did he have documents? I guess he might have, but then so did Joe Biden, apparently, in his garage next to his Porsche. But the question is...
So you're about the whataboutism.
I'm about, balance.
Balance?
Yeah, it sounds like he had something, but at the same time, he seemed to make the counter-argument that as a president, he's allowed to have certain documents. I'm not a law expert, so all I'm hearing is like one end and the other. It's like if he's allowed to have certain documents, I'm assuming those are legal documents he'd have. And if they're confidential, it's within his jurisdiction as president to do that, or ex-president.
The answer is no.
So I don't believe he had those documents?
No. The answer is he had documents that did not belong to him.
Okay.
That he refused to turn over.
Were they end of the world documents like that could have destroyed, the Western society from him keeping him, or were they just like some weird thing like I don't know, what were the documents then?
They were about our nuclear capabilities.
Outdated nuclear codes?
Where do you come up with outdated?
Well, were they current, or did they just switch the codes? I mean, the
they're
point
classified documents.
But anything can be like registered classified by like the DOJ. Like just because they're classified, that gives it this.
It's not the DOJ that classify them; it's our intelligence agency.
Okay, well, whoever our intelligence agency is, I'm assuming that if you classify stuff, are we led to believe that everything that's classified is so sacred that like it's not permitted to ever be?
Let's say it's not, but it belongs to the United States,
Okay.
not the president.
Okay, but then once again, let's say that's the case, right? And he actually did not have legal permission to have these documents. Okay, fine. Now the problem is that if whatever you do as a president to Trump, now you got to do it to Biden or Hillary for that matter. But let's just stick with Biden.
All right. So you looked at Biden. You never mentioned Pence.
Well, all I know is Mike Pence, lost his election bid here.
No,
for the
Pence
race,
also had classified documents.
well, he probably
So what happened when those classified documents were discovered?
I don't know.
They
Tell me.
immediately called the DOJ. They got picked up and they handed them over.
Okay, and Trump
For
didn't.
over a year, the National Archives have been asking Trump for these documents, and he's been running around or giving them, nickel and diming them until one day they looked and saw that amongst these documents they were asking for were classified documents. Hence, they in turn turned them over to the FBI.
It sounds like they had the nuclear codes for submarines or something.
Not you keep up. Coming
Well, I mean,
up with
they're
nuclear codes.
MacGuffin devices that clearly will destroy the world if Cobra or some evil terrorist organization.
It will degrade our security for sure if they got out.
Unless, of course, you switch the codes on those documents.
The codes. You keep saying
It's like
codes
you change
in
your
the document.
password.
Why do you keep thinking that they're nuclear codes?
Because I was led to believe by I think if I remember correctly, Rachel Maddow in them, right? Like somebody out there that's obviously a detractor of Trump kept pushing that these were like leaked nuclear codes or whatever.
Not nuclear. They never said.
So
nuclear.
then, what is
It was
exactly
our
the
nuclear
threat?
capabilities,
Right.
or
We have nukes. That's bad. Okay, now what? Like, do we have like supersonic missiles that go back in time or something, or is it like, are we in charge of Area 51? Is that what was being?
It shows. See, you being facetious.
I'm just saying. I'm not trying to like be a dick about it. I'm just.
But let's say, for instance, he was on recording from a writer of Just Sessions. Was it Jeff Sessions? Yeah, book where he was showing plans to attack Iran,
Okay.
which are classified. He was showing them
Okay.
to people who did not have clearance
code, and then they whistle blew on him. I get that. Yeah, he
Right.
was probably bragging.
Okay. All right. So again, he has refused to turn those over.
Okay.
They had to serve a search warrant,
Yep.
and they went into Mar-a-Lago
And
and
they
picked
went
up
through
all these
Liliana's
documents.
shoe drawer and everything else, if I recall correctly. But yes.
Okay. All right. So that's one.
Okay.
So he had documents, refused to return them,
Yep.
and actually had obstructed justice.
Fine.
Okay. That's one.
Okay. Now.
Okay.
Okay.
January 6th.
Oh man, with this again.
With the fake electors. That's another one. That's in DC right now.
Right.
Actually, that's going to be the four. That's
Speaking
gonna
of,
be
what
the
about the
first one to
weird
come out.
like January 6th like incident that happened? I think it was a few weeks ago where a bunch of pro-Palestinian supporters was it Capitol the Capitol building? They like infiltrated in there and.
There was no infiltration.
It was
what
kind
they
of a
did,
similar.
they walked in and did a protest, and then they were
after learning your
peaceably
lesson.
arrested.
Wait a minute. After learning your lesson of January 6th, isn't it kind of hypocritical for that to happen though? Like, didn't they just go? This isn't a good PR move on our end because we saw what happened January 6th, and clearly you're not supposed to go into the Capitol like this. So why would you do it?
They didn't beat up cops. They didn't break down barriers. They didn't.
They still
cause
broke into
death.
the actual Capitol building unwanted, right?
They walked into the Capitol and had a protest, and they were
But most of the
peaceably
people that
arrested.
got right, but only a small percentage of people, I guess, beat up cops January 6th.
Small percentage.
A lot of them
out
just
all the
waltzed in
people
there like curious cats, but they didn't
Okay.
necessarily do anything that was, no different than I guess what the protesters did in this incident.
Yes, they did.
No, not all of them. A lot of them ended up like losing like their livelihood and their jobs and their reputations. So where's the double standard there?
What double standard?
How many of the individuals in
Did
that
they
stormed
stop
Capitol Hill have
proceeding?
lost their?
Answer's no. Were they violent? The answer is no.
Okay, did they lose? Did they get deplatformed?
They got arrested.
Canceled on social media.
They got arrested.
Banned from using planes like some individuals did during January 6th who went in the Capitol building. None of that happened to them.
No.
Then that's a double standard.
No, it's not.
They walked physically into the actual building.
That they're the
it
same,
seems like a double
and
standard.
It's not.
And while we're at double
absurd.
standards, what about what Biden and his his precious documents next to his Mercedes or his Porsche or whatever?
What?
That's a double standard. What's happened to Biden due to that?
What? You're equating this in when those documents were discovered.
Yeah.
Biden
had a few days to kind of call them up and
call
them through. Yeah.
They came, picked them up, and that's it.
That's it.
Same thing with Pence. When it was discovered that Pence had some classified documents, he called, they came, picked it up, and that's it.
Okay.
If Trump had turned over the documents
right away.
Right. He had over a year and a half before they came.
Do you really believe that legally he was in the right to have those documents?
Did he believe?
Yeah, I guess he must have.
Otherwise, the answer is no. He can say he believed. No. He was well briefed on documents. He knew how to declassify documents.
Well, let's put it this way.
The procedures
let's put it this way.
And on tape, admitted, particularly the one I was telling you about, where he was on recording with a plan to attack Iran, right? He admitted that if he was president, he could have declassified it, but he didn't. So that's a classified document.
Now, did Biden ever make a snarky quote saying, "They're not after me, they're after you. I just happen to be in the way"?
Why would Biden make a quote like that?
Because he wouldn't actually, because he's basically the elusive they that Trump's talking about. But in terms of the overall spirit behind draining the swamp, and overall, I think the issue here, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, is that the majority of the population sees Trump as probably the closest thing to some sort of a spearhead for proverbially draining the swamp, draining all the corruption.
The majority of the people?
Let's say, did you see the polls today?
A majority
it was
of the vote against Hillary Clinton.
Versus 42% or something.
He didn't get a majority of vote against Hillary Clinton.
Look at the polls now. Trump is definitely on the popularity polls doing better than Biden. So, go figure, I guess.
A year out, these are...
all right.
Throw
me some more of these. These are good.
Okay. All right, next one. Let's talk about New York City and
Eric Adams.
No, Bragg. We'll get to Adams, but Bragg, and that's on the Trump org, and him inflating their value of the properties.
I heard about that. None of the banks and real estate companies really had an issue with him, though. The only person that had an issue was the people prosecuting him in court, but the actual records of all the banks and everybody else that you seem to understand. Nobody had an issue. When he claimed he blew up his property values, right, to the banks, no banks filed a complaint. No actual,
When you sign the form,
you're missing the
you
thing
go
here.
in. You go in and get a loan.
The banks seem to agree. The banks on that contract, if I understand anything about contract law, agreed with Trump's claims to what the value of those things were. Hence, the contracts were signed.
That's not true.
And no banks,
that's not true.
No real estate built entities seem to have had an issue with them. As far as I can tell.
No.
The only ones were the ones that are trying to create a case here against them, which was just a small percentage of people in the court there that are looking for anything to prosecute them. In other words, nobody has a problem. It's kind of like when you're at work, right? And nobody has a problem. The work is going a certain way, but that one employee or employer who has to be all skinflint about stuff and just makes life miserable, right? It's the same idea. It's like nobody in that district seem to have an issue overall. Maybe not like Trump as a person, that's debatable, but in terms of like these legalities, in terms of his claims for his real estate value and everything like that, nobody was bringing it up. Nobody was actually bringing this to court for years on end, and all of a sudden, finally, the I don't know if it's the Department of Justice or just like the overall like liberal branch of the Democratic Party or the establishment went out of their way to find something to prosecute him with. But like nobody really had an issue. So again, this just to the average layperson, this just shows to them they're looking to find anything to bring this guy down. And it's like, okay, so he can act like a douche. We all know that. But like, let it rest. Nobody's really had an issue with these like indictments. It's the most radical, diehard leftist liberal, acolytes that like just want to see him go down. I don't get it. Like,
Number 4.
all right, well, let's
Georgia.
go to the next one.
And that is the RICO case.
RICO case. Yeah.
Dealing with interference in the Georgia election, where we listened to the tape where Trump asked the Secretary of State to come up with 11,780 votes out of nowhere, which is one more than he needed in order to overturn the Georgia election.
Okay, so what's the question? Is this just an observation, or
no? That's the fourth.
Okay,
that's the fourth. So you have 4 different jurisdictions.
Okay,
2
one of them
federal.
One of them, yeah.
2
The
of
January
local.
6th one seems a little bit double-sided because of the very fact that what happened even recently, which didn't help the reputation overall to the theme of that. The one that took place in terms of his Mar-a-Lago incident. About? Well, again, it's like a double standard here, like because when the political opponents, if you will, even if it is the masses that make up supporters for the establishment, go in there and storm Capitol Hill, like the Capitol. It just sets a precedence of kind of a hypocrisy here going on. Like people are just like, well, it wasn't the greatest of incidents that happened. I
greatest
think
of it. I
said it was not the greatest of incidents. We talked about this in a previous episode. Nobody really agreed with the way that was handled back in January 6th. And like for some reason, people want to keep reliving it we realized it was a shitty day, like overall in American history.
So,
and a lot of people got shafted. A lot of people got unfairly shafted, as we found out later with guys. Yeah, like what's his name? The
shaman.
Yeah, like
how is he unfair? He was inside.
You're gonna have to watch episode. I think it was 3-1 or something like that. So the superposition of all these claims, unfortunately, are marred by looking in the mirror of the political other side of the aisle.
Do you know what your QAnon shaman is doing today?
Working at soup kitchens and helping the homeless.
He served his 2 years. I think it was 41 months, whenever it was.
Right.
So he's out, and I think he's filed to run for Congress in Arizona.
Good for him. All right, only in America. Him and Mike Tyson. You gotta love.
All right, let's go to your boy Eric Adams. Are you aware of the latest on our favorite New York City mayor?
Just that my colleagues in New York, that even my liberal friends don't seem to like him much. Not to mention the masses of migrants that are miserable on the streets right now because there's not enough shelters. But tell me more about Eric Adams.
He's being investigated.
Really?
A Turkish government official in late summer of 2021, they're looking at foreign campaign contributions. And so when Adams, I believe he was in D.C., the feds stopped him and confiscated his iPhone and I believe his iPad.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah, the FBI or something.
Yes.
Yeah, why was that? Because he was speaking out against the Biden regime, I guess is a good way to put it.
It's not
concerning immigration. Yeah.
No,
And so all of a sudden they started to try to like find flaws in him and try to get him, kind of like what they did to Trump. Anybody who's a political enemy, they'll try to find anything to incarcerate you. That's kind of the theme that's going on here. I guess the public then has to ask themselves, well, are these individuals wrong by making these claims? I mean, like it seems like you piss off the wrong people in the establishment, and all of a sudden they're going to come after you like Agent Smith in The Matrix. Are they wrong?
Yes.
They are wrong. So this is just a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence.
So why did Eric Adams get bullied by the FBI again? Sorry?
Because they're investigating whether the Turkish government funneled money into his campaign, which is illegal.
Okay, but like let me recreate this in a parallel universe. I'm not saying that's not illegal.
No,
the fact that this was
they're
going out of their way. They're going out of their way to find something. I think is the theme here, right? Why didn't they get him about 6 months ago before he started kind of bad mouthing Biden? That's the question. See, that's what gets suspicious. I think I can speak for a lot of people here. Like I'm not saying he's a saint here, but why not do it like 8 months ago or 2 years ago? Why now?
I don't know what evidence that they have.
As soon as you become a thorn in the flesh of the establishment, all of a sudden the feds come after you. Therein lies a recurring theme. The same thing is what a lot of people think about concerning Trump. They may not necessarily say the guy's a saint, he's a flawed human, but it's strange how the feds seem to go after him at this moment in time for this particular thing when they could have done it years ago or who knows what, it's just too weird.
No, I always had a problem with the city of New York not going after Trump long ago for, again, inflating his prices.
Right, but they never really.
I understand
that. Right.
And there was, I'm thinking it was New York Times did a great article about him a few years back, and then broke down the entire family from his father on it and how what they were doing in order to manipulate prices. They would overcharge, for a hammer or whatever for tools that they didn't have. And in order to have tax write-offs, how the IRS never got involved, I have no idea. But let's switch another subject. I want to hit.
All right, by all means, yeah. Let's. These are fun, please.
Okay. In 6 states, elections officials recently, starting, I believe, on November 8th, started receiving envelopes with traces of fentanyl.
Ooh, that's not good.
Not good at all. So, what do you think about that? And is this another example of the assault on election workers since 2020?
Not just election workers, but what about the poor postal workers that are going to carry this crap? That's really interesting. I guess find out who's throwing this kind of toxin in the mail and prosecute them to their fullest. That's horrible.
Well, that's the FBI and I forgot the 6th state, but California, Nevada, Georgia, Portland, and Washington State. There was one more. I can't think of
nobody's really succumbed to any kind of fentanyl problems here.
No, but this is just another assault on election workers. What we saw during the after the 2020 election, where election workers were being threatened and receiving death threats and all over the country. Those who, again, that used to be a badge of honor that you are helping democracy out by, going in and
well, it is, but you should be able to answer questions, though, that are very obvious if you're an election worker, though, too. Like, whenever somebody senses something that doesn't sit right, let me give you a perfect example. I went there and I voted for my my particular senator the other day, about a week and a half ago, in the beloved town that I live in here. And the ladies that were at the desk, they, smiley, everything was fine. And I said, okay, this is my name. I'm from here, this town. And I gave them my ID. They're like, we don't need your ID. I'm like, I was surprised. Like, why wouldn't you need my ID? How do you know I'm not me? And they're like, well, it's a small town. I'm like, yeah, but what if somebody comes in who pretends for whatever reason that they're me? Like, doesn't this concern you? Why would you relax a very obvious rule that could create...
You keep saying it's a rule.
Well,
What is the
okay,
rule?
policy.
What policy?
Okay, a very obvious action that could reduce any kind of chicanery or confusion. If I have an ID, you clearly know it's me. Or at least it's there's a very good, if you really want to play safe, 2 forms of ID. But like just one form with a license and I look like the person with the license. Good enough for me, right? Show me a credit card with your name on it too. Do what we do at work, right? License and credit card. Just show me that. And then you're like, okay, now you can vote. Why? Because you could have been anybody else. I was actually disappointed at how lax their rules were for security here for preventing fraud.
A rule. The rules are
okay,
not lax.
That's just it. That should have been a rule.
Not required.
Yeah. Have you ever wondered why? Well, we trust everybody all of a sudden.
What?
That's it. So we trust everybody, and yet we don't trust them in almost everything else.
Well, all right.
That's why we have cameras everywhere in every major traffic.
Somebody showed up, said your name, and they check it off. Then you come in afterwards, and
that's a hassle and a half for everybody, don't you think?
Well,
couldn't you have avoided this if you just simply required me to give you my license?
Well, it's not a requirement.
Yeah, but you're not answering the obvious question here. Couldn't you have avoided the hypothetical? That's like you going up. That's like you going up to the rental car place, right? And going, well, what do they need to see your ID for? I mean, don't you trust them? You're like, no, there could be fraud, right? You go rent a car. What do they ask you? License and credit card, right? Why? Because anybody could go in there and pretend they're you with your credit card, and then just get a car. Next thing you know, they crash it, and you're culpable for it. Or you're part of an investigation. It makes much more sense. It protects the rental car store and the said customer if both parties simply are like, that's a reasonable request. You need a major credit card and a valid driver's license. Why is that so hard for people running an election to understand?
It's not necessary.
Because
the odds of someone impersonating you.
Yeah, right.
But again, once you roll in there, it's going to get caught, right?
Not necessarily. Well, but just think of the stress.
What
the
stress?
amount of money
no
that has
stress.
to you have to get to the police department in there for a fraud case. It would have been avoided if you just simply gave them a license.
Not required.
You don't think that? Yeah, but you're not answering the
what question?
hypothetically here.
Don't you think it's
easier? Don't you think it's easier to avoid stress?
There is no stress.
I've
been voting in Massachusetts.
Okay, so
since
all right, but based on that logic, if there's
40 years,
based on that logic, let's go back
40 years.
Fine,
never had a problem.
You
never
may
showed
not have
an
had a
ID
problem.
once.
Okay, you may not have had a problem. I'm just saying, based on that logic, back in 2020, I go to an airport. There is nobody in the airport, and I'm required to wear a mask. Well, logically, there's no reason I should wear the mask. I agree with you.
No, there is a reason. It was a requirement.
Wait a minute, but you're not using logic to justify these. Like you're just looking at it from a legalistic.
Oh no. There is
a
logic. There is a logic.
Do this, don't ask why. That's kind of what you're suggesting.
No, that's not what I'm suggesting. There was a logic.
Yeah, but if nobody's... If I saw a woman at the airport, right, and this happened actually in 2020, I'll never forget this. She comes in there. She was nervous. Just looked like she, obviously it was a rough time for everybody, but there was nobody in the airport and she had a mask on. And I was like, woman, you can take that thing off. Like it was actually during one of our more relaxed phases of COVID too.
Why would you tell her?
Because you don't have to live in fear. We can all relax a little bit. And I was like, just based on the laws of physics, there's nobody here that can actually infect you. Okay, I'm 20 feet away from you as we speak. There is nobody in this airport. It's a derelict area. It looks like the Langoliers from that Stephen King movie.
That's amazing.
And I'm just simply like, you can take that off. Like, for the sake of your own health and wellness,
why
take
would
it off.
bother you that someone else wants to wear a mask? If they want to wear a mask?
So if you want to live repressed, folks, go ahead. But logic and reason and critical thinking is the theme of the day. That's all I'm saying. But okay, throw me some more, man. Like, Give me a little like like at the end of a fireworks display where you get the grand finale and there's all sorts of squibs and crackers. Give me something like that. Throw in anything. Ask me any questions. Go ahead.
Okay.
Any topic. Doesn't even have to be political or issues of the day. Go ahead. Philosophical, physics. Freaking cartoons. I don't know. You surprised me here.
I did?
No. I'm saying hopefully surprise me. Right. Give me a good top 5. And we'll end it with that. Just a good little romp and just anything goes. Right. A little freestyle. A little battle royal, if you will. Omnibus of just ideas exchange. Right.
Well, it was an interesting case I was looking at. Dale Holloway's 41 is facing 7 charges, the most serious of which are 2 counts of attempted murder. He is accused of shooting a bride and a bishop during a October 2019 wedding.
That's terrible.
At a New Hampshire church. So I said, that's terrible. What would make this 41-year-old go into a church during a wedding?
This was not a member of the wedding party, right? This
Correct.
is just some nut that just went into the... Okay.
So I did my research. What would, because I was wondering what would happen.
Wait, let's see if I can answer the question. He was an ex-lover of the bride.
Good try. Okay. That seems logical.
Seems pretty logical.
But his stepfather, the shooter, right, was killed recently. Or back then.
The shooter.
2019. Yes, the shooter's stepfather was killed.
Okay.
The shooter's
stepfather was killed by...
Who was a minister in the same church.
And he was killed by, I take it, somebody in the wedding party.
Was killed by the groom's son.
Okay, so why take it out on the wedding?
Why? Well, so what happened was this minister of this church who knew this family had come over to the father's house and the son who also lived there in order to do some painting. He was painting the house, as for the father.
Right.
And so for whatever reason, the son shot the minister. Unknown reason, was arrested, was found there an hour rocking back and forth near the body and whatnot. So they arrested him.
Okay, this was the one that happened a year ago.
Well, 2019.
Okay.
So what happened? So the father is getting married.
Yep.
Right? So he's getting married at the church where this minister ministered. Right?
Yeah.
Would you believe that on that same day, following the wedding, was a life celebration for the minister who was killed?
It's very Black Mirror, I must say.
Yeah, so somebody thought that it'd be a good idea for the family who killed the minister to have their wedding on the same day that they're having a life celebration for the minister who was killed by the son.
I feel like this is one of those lessons learned where you go, and that's why you don't want to, if ever your son kills the father of a said, I don't even know where to go with this, but okay. Man, that's pretty cryptic.
Right. So, again, Dale Holiday, for whatever, decided that he was going to go to the wedding. He assaulted the father with a gun, shot the bride, and then shot the bishop who was doing the service.
Poor bride. I mean, jeez.
I know. But I found that, and that, again, doing research, because I was trying
Nobody
to
was
figure
packing heat that day in the congregation. That
so you're saying that what stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy?
Sometimes, just like it happened. Man, I think it was in Texas where like this psycho went around trying to shoot like various congregations, and finally somebody in the congregation shot this guy down because he luckily was carrying. And so it's funny how the media didn't really push that story, but I can definitely find it for you. and the audience.
No, I'd rather you talk to me about the 100 officers in Uvalde who refused to go in for an hour after one lone kid with a gun.
You talking about it like the Texas shoot 'em thing?
Yeah,
We talked about that weeks ago.
I know that, but hell, you
Well,
want to
no,
go to
I
Texas?
think we already visited that one.
I'll bring
Watch
you to Texas.
episode. Let me see if I can remember my archives here. Watch episode. I want to say 6-2 for my response on the main shooter that led to this actual subplot of what happened in Texas that terrible day. But all right, come on. What throw me something here. Like before we close the evening, is there anything that you think that the audience would like to hear, either socially or philosophically or metaphysically or movie history? I don't know, man. Let's kind of end on a lighter note or something, or maybe not.
Well, on a lighter note, Marvels came
the
out
movie,
last Friday.
Yeah, how they do?
And did 47 mil on Friday, Saturday, which is half of what was anticipated. So what we've seen of late is the Marvel universe is not doing too well. Some are blaming Disney's hand in this.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Yes.
So what do you think about that?
I will tell you what I told my friend actually last Thursday, who her words, not mine. I love the Marvel movie Captain Marvel because of the cat, and I just kind of nodded politely, and I was like, "That's deep." But you know what? If that's what makes you enjoy the movie, I mean, that's fine. But I'm like, I don't think the latest Phase 4 movies were as well written as the original Phase 3 and 2 of the Marvel universe. I think they just have kind of run out of ideas now, and they're just kind of scraping. That's my sensation.
Well, as far as running out of ideas, I don't buy that particular reason because, as I've said before, when they've changed things, for instance, the Fantastic Four, when that came out by, I'm thinking
2009 or something.
I'm thinking Sony. No, the latest one where they were adopted or orphans or stepchildren, where you had a black Johnny Storm. It's like, where'd you guys get this? The writing is not the problem because the good stuff's already written. Written in the comic book.
Wokeism is the problem. I didn't want to say it. I figured we'd leave it.
No, you didn't have any hesitation bringing woke. It wasn't wokeism.
Because I heard actually the Marvels,
was not wokeism.
There's a lot of that. They fill all the quotas you need to keep their equity quotas or whatever their social credit score quotas, and so I think people can when that just starts to obviously.
It's not woke.
Radiate more than the actual quality of the story. I think people just start to lose respect for the franchise, and it's sad because it's true. There's so much potential in Marvel and Star Wars, and they're not bad. I sit there and I watch the Ahsoka series, and I was like, "That's not bad." Could it have been better? Hell yeah, it could have been way better. And then as soon as you bring that up, a couple friends are like, "That's so sexist or misogynist," just because for instance, the Marvel I wasn't a huge fan of Captain Marvel. I didn't think it was very well written. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the best of the Marvel movies that were made.
No.
But then people were like, "Well, you don't like Brie Larson." I'm like, "You're right. I really don't care for Brie Larson." But
no,
I'm willing to admit a good movie when I see a good movie. I mentioned you the other time, a couple months ago, Natalie Portman. I'm not a huge fan of her as an actress, but I have to admit. As a person, I shouldn't say as an actress. As a person, I feel like she's kind of jumped on that whole sort of woke-ish kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you know what? She is talented, and I am going to defend the movie Annihilation. It's a good movie. I thought it was one of the best recent weird surreal sci-fi movies I've seen in years. I have it upstairs. If you want to borrow it, it's a pretty freaking good movie. Annihilation. You might be pleasantly surprised. It's like an acid trip, but it's pretty good.
Okay.
So, not that I'm suggesting I've done acid. So yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
I think I guess this concludes our episode for this fine evening. We'll
Yes.
call it an early evening tonight. But it was once again great getting together and pondering the issues of the day. I'd like to folks, if you listen to this, we may actually take a sabbatical next week. At least the Claude, Xavier, and Tyson show, and we might be doing some other projects that will probably be on the channel. But either way, enjoy your week and
Enjoy Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Happy
enjoy Thanksgiving, and hope to see you guys soon. And be safe and well, and honestly, live each day as possible to its fullest and enjoy it. So, have a great night, everybody. Take care. Hit a like, subscribe, and feel free to share any episodes.